SingularityNet is extremely close to breaking out. We've been following this yellow trend line since close to the previous all-time high, which was back here around the 2nd and 3rd of September. So we've been following this yellow trend line for quite a bit amount of time. We're following this white trend line only for a little bit, and as soon as we broke out of this white trend line, you can see that we actually reached the top of this blue line that I put down up here. So I do believe that we're relatively close of breaking out, and if we do break out, I do expect for us to actually come up and meet this blue trend line as well, similar to what we did back here, and we were pretty close as well back here, which was the 25th of October of last year. Now the very bullish news or bullish indicator in the chart is that the Stochastic RSI down here is pretty close to oversold, and on the cipher B the sell pressure has actually been decreasing. So if you see this red line down there, you could see that it actually has been decreasing, which is a really good sign. It shows that the sell pressure on SingularityNet is weakening, and what we would like to see is something similar to as we see back here, which is this green wave or this green line right here, where you see the buy pressure a lot higher, and that's the reason why or one of the indicators on why we would see the price going up. So that's a relatively good sign. We've also, you know, even though it does look bearish, the fact that SingularityNet has been dropping, you know, on 165 days, I believe, so almost half a year, it's showing that the sell pressure has been slowing down, which is a good sign for a reversal coming. Now that doesn't mean that a reversal will come. So even though right now it does look a bit bullish, or not bullish, but that the fact that it may start shooting up soon, it doesn't mean that it will. You know, I was relatively bullish here, especially when SingularityNet broke out of this white trend line and we ended up reaching up the top. I think this was about a 50 to 65% jump. I really expected SingularityNet to start going up from here, but as you can see, we got rejected, came back down. We did bounce off of the white trend line, which was a good sign, but this yellow trend line has just been significantly stronger, and we've been following this trend, and unfortunately we've been following the trend down, and we've just been following this yellow trend line. But I do believe we're relatively close of breaking out. This blue line that you see down here is a support level. It's the lowest line that we see, which was around the 22nd of June of last year. This is the lowest it's been since the new AGIX coin. I don't have the previous AGI chart here because that AGI coin doesn't exist anymore technically, so this is the only chart I have right now on TradingView, the AGIX one, but that's the lowest we've seen, which is around the 10-cent mark, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 10 cents. So we're relatively close to 10 cents. We're currently at about 12 cents. So I do believe that if we do break off of this yellow trend line, we're at least going to meet the top, and at the current price or the current day, that would be around the 20-cent mark, like around the 19-20-cent mark, which is up here. So I do expect if SingularityNet does break to the upside, we're at least going to meet this blue trend line that you see down here, or at least close to the 20-cent mark. We did something similar. It wasn't too many times, but once we broke off of this yellow trend line, we reached the top of the blue line here and relatively close here, which was around the 22nd of October of last year. This one was 30th of November of last year. So if we do break up, I do expect it to be up here somewhere around the 19-20 cent mark. Obviously, if we break out later, the last day of this symmetrical triangle, it's gonna be around the 27th of February. So if we do break out around the 27th, 28th of February, it's gonna be closer to the 18-cent mark. So we're gonna have to wait and see, but at least looking at right now, because the Stochastic RSI is low, the sell pressure has been dropping, the volume has also been dropping, if you see down here. So it's been dropping, so the sell pressure, you could just see that it's kind of dying off, although it's pretty sad to see that we have met these lows again, and as we reach back here on last month in January. So we have to wait and see, but at least looking at these indicators, it looks pretty good, pretty close that it's gonna break up. But obviously we can't just look at the positives and, you know, believe that it's gonna go up, because there's still a chance that we might continue to go down, and maybe we might not break out of this trend line upwards, but we might actually break down on the support level and go below the 10-cent mark. So looking at those indicators to see what happens if we do break down. Right now the MACD is actually, we were green for quite a few amount of days, and now we're going under on the red. So if we end up seeing further sell pressure, then we might see SingularityNet actually start going below instead of above the trend line, and we might see a lot of further downside. Because I don't have previous AGI, the AGI's price target, obviously right now the lowest would be 10 cents, but you know, if we do break below the 10-cent mark, the lowest obviously is gonna be around the 1 cent, which is around between the 1 cent and the 5 cent, because I remember I was accumulating AGI around 1 through 5 cents, you know, for quite a good amount of time. So I do believe, you know, like the 5 to 1 cent mark is gonna be a strong support level, but that's gonna be from the current prices over, like it's gonna be like around another 60% drop, which is not something we would like to see. But that would happen if Bitcoin actually doesn't hold its own. So Bitcoin is another indicator that you should actually look at, because we actually broke above the 600-day EMA. As I was talking about Bitcoin, it went up, and while this was, you know, showing a good amount of strength, I was expecting AGI to shoot up, and it kind of did a little bit, but not a significant amount as I would have hoped. But this yellow trend line has just been so strong, and when Bitcoin actually failed to hold the EMA ribbon, which is this right here, let me see if I could delete the EMAs. So because Bitcoin during this time, it actually broke above the EMA ribbons, we came down and bounced off of the lower part of the EMA ribbons, which was a good sign, and we went back up again. But we got rejected quite quickly up here, and now we're under the EMA ribbons again, and that's why you see pretty significant, I believe it's a significant sell-off right now on the altcoins and Bitcoin. It's a pretty big drop, you know, it's a pretty big drop. Altcoins have been dropping like 10% plus. It's not a pretty sign. So right now we are below the EMA ribbons, and we don't want to see Bitcoin below the EMA ribbons. We want to see it to be above the EMA ribbons. It's actually a pretty good sign, you know. As soon as if we are above the EMA ribbons, we tend to be in a bullish uptrend. As soon as we're below the EMA ribbons, we're on a pretty bearish downtrend, you know. And you can see same thing as back here. We break below, we're in a bearish downtrend. We break above, we're in a bullish uptrend. So we want to see Bitcoin above this. Right now, that's I was seeing that Bitcoin was below the EMA ribbons. It was actually being held, you know, or has found support above the 500-day EMA, which is a pretty good sign. Because I've noticed that if we check back here, Bitcoin, you know, broke below the 500-day EMA. We broke down below the 600-day EMA pretty quick. Like we didn't get really like a bounce above the 600-day EMA, and then we ended up breaking above it, and we didn't get no, you know, resistance on the 500-day EMA. So it seems like once we came back down, I believe this is the 100, if I'm not mistaken, the 100-day EMA. Right now we're testing it as support. So I am hoping that Bitcoin does bounce off of the 500-day EMA, just because it didn't really, you know, meet any resistance here. So I feel like because we didn't meet any resistance around the 500-day EMA, we're coming back down and kind of testing it again and seeing, was this for real, you know, like are we gonna have a nice bounce and say, okay, the 500-day EMA is now being tested, we're bouncing off of it, so that's a good sign? Or are we gonna get rejected? If we do get rejected, then expect SingularityNet to actually just keep falling down, you know, a lot further to those prices that I mentioned, you know, maybe below the 10-cent mark. If it falls below the 10-cent mark, then, you know, expect the 5 cent to 1 cent range. Now, I didn't expect it to go this low, but this is obviously all depending on what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is a very strong chart to look at, because what Bitcoin does, it really dictates what most of the altcoins will do. So every time you're doing technical analysis or looking at charts of other coins, you have to look at Bitcoin. It's, you know, it doesn't matter how good or how bad a chart, you know, might look on an altcoin. Bitcoin ultimately, it's a strong chart or indicator for you to look. You could treat it as an indicator. It's a good thing to look at. Same thing with Ethereum. Although I do believe Ethereum, there's times where you could use it as a good way to see where the altcoins might go. I still think Bitcoin's #1, but there are times where Ethereum determines what the price of the other altcoins do. But right now Ethereum, you know, same thing. It almost looked like it wanted to break above the EMA ribbons. It got rejected. We bounced off of it, got rejected the second time, and now we're kind of seeing what we do with Ethereum, similar to what Bitcoin has been doing. Right now we same thing. We broke it above the trend line, came back down. We broke above it again. Now we're under the trend line again, and we're kind of testing that trend line. So we gotta wait and see what Bitcoin and Ethereum do. I think that's ultimately gonna determine what SingularityNet does. I am hoping that Bitcoin does hold the 500-day EMA and we get a nice bounce from here. If we do get this nice bounce off the 500-day EMA, then this trend line might be the last time we see this trend line, and we're gonna start seeing SingularityNet at least, you know, maybe reach the top of this trend line and maybe get close to between the 18-19 cent range. And if we do hit this trend line here, we might get a small rejection and then hopefully, you know, start trending up again. But obviously we gotta wait and see. No one knows what the future holds, but I am hoping it's looking like it's gonna be a nice uptrend relatively soon on SingularityNet. But that's gonna be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.